Hey guys, this is Robert with Coherent Faith Apologetics, and this is our first YouTube response, so I'm going to be answering this question, and we're going to have a lot of fun looking into this question. I'm going to take about 10 minutes to answer this, and our question is, true altruism is impossible. Christianity is altruistic, therefore isn't Christianity incoherent? So let me define that word for you, and then let me give you the backstory as to why we're even talking about this. From Merriam-Webster, altruism is unselfish regard for or devotion to the welfare of another. Unselfish regard for or devotion to the welfare of another. So all that means is, if you're being altruistic, it means you're just giving all of yourself to another person. You're saying, I care about you, and I'm just going to give all of myself to do something for you, and it doesn't benefit me in any conceivable way whatsoever. Now here's the backstory to that question. Roger met a friend, Roger, who is another author for CFA, met a friend of his at Starbucks, and a mutual friend of both of them walked in and got talking with him, and for whatever reason they got talking about spiritual matters, and the question of altruism came up, and his friend said, well, one of the reasons I don't believe in Christianity is because of altruism. And Roger asked, well, what for? And his friend responded by saying, true altruism is impossible. It's not possible to completely do something that doesn't benefit you in some way when you're acting for another person. Christianity is completely altruistic with all that stuff about benefiting those others and loving your neighbor as yourself. Therefore, Christianity is based upon a flawed ideology and is flawed itself, therefore incoherent. So that's the backstory to the question, and I'm going to be looking at that and be answering this question saying, first, is Christianity altruistic? And second, does that make it incoherent? And then third, I actually want to look at altruism in relationship to atheism and see if those two actually contradict with one another. So let's start off with Christianity. Now remember, altruism is unselfish regard for or devotion to the welfare of another. So it's selflessly giving yourself. You might picture a soldier who jumps on top of the grenade that's been lobbed at his friend and gets blown to smithereens in selfless devotion to his friend. That's what altruism is. Keep that mental picture in your mind. Now, the big question, obviously, is Christianity altruistic? I would say it is and it isn't on two different planes. I would say Christianity is altruistic on a practical plane, but I would say Christianity isn't altruistic on an ideological level. So let me explain this. Now, a great example of what I mean with practical versus ideological is thinking while you're doing the action. Thinking while you're doing the action. Take when Roger and I met last week at Starbucks. Roger bought his coffee, I bought my coffee. Think if I had bought Roger's coffee. If I was buying Roger's coffee just because I wanted to be nice to him, am I being altruistic? Now, Roger's agnostic friend would say no. He would say, if you bought that coffee, conceivably, Roger could think to himself, oh, Robert's a nice person for doing that. I'm going to do something later down the road to repay him for that. So true altruism in that situation is not possible. But am I myself thinking that? When I buy Roger's coffee, am I thinking to myself, I'm going to buy this coffee because then, somewhere down the road, Roger's going to remember this wonderful act of kindness that I did to him and buy me something? Of course not. That's not what I'm thinking when I'm doing something nice for another person. So ideologically, is it possible that a situation could exist in which benefit could be given to myself when I take a altruistic action? Of course. But am I thinking that practically? Am I thinking to myself, I want to benefit myself by buying Roger coffee? Of course not. That's not, what's the word I'm looking for? That's not possible in reality in the sense that nobody thinks that way. It's not realistic. There's the word I'm searching for. It's not realistic. I'm not thinking that. Nobody's thinking that when they take a nice action for myself. When my mom is shopping and thinking, oh, Robert would really like that shirt. I'm going to buy it for him. Or when I'm shopping and I see something that I know my sister would like and I buy that for her and bring it home. Am I thinking this is going to give me cute points later that my sister's going to use to do something for me? Absolutely not. I'm just thinking I want to be nice. My mom was thinking I just want to be nice. Or if I was buying Roger coffee, I just want to be nice. That's all that it is. I want to be nice. Is it possible other situations exist to benefit me? Of course. Am I doing the action so that I can get those? Absolutely not. So Christianity is altruistic, but it's not ideologically altruistic. So back to the question, is true altruism is impossible? Ideologically, yes. Christianity is altruistic. Practically, yes. Ideologically, no. Therefore, isn't Christianity incoherent? No. Because it's working on a practical level, not an ideological level. And since it's not working at the ideological level, the argument doesn't apply for what he's saying, which is true altruism. Christianity is not truly altruistic, it's practically altruistic. Now, I want to move in a little bit, though, with atheism and altruism, because I think this is pretty interesting. Atheism and altruism are incoherent together. Now, here's what I want to think about this. And I'm going to set this up in the sense of a philosophical proof. Okay, go back to your geometry days. We're thinking of deductive logic here. So this is absolute necessity based on premises, you get an absolute conclusion. So here's premise one. Either altruism or survival of the fittest exist, not both. They're mutually exclusive. Either altruism or survival of the fittest exist, not both. They're mutually exclusive. Or that could be phrased more simply, altruism and survival of the fittest are mutually exclusive. They cannot coexist. So I'm getting one from altruism, perfect altruism, which the asker, the question, assumes. True altruism is impossible. Survival of the fittest is something that atheism assumes, evolutionary atheism assumes. That's important. Not just atheism, evolutionary atheism. Second premise, altruism exists. Now, here's the interesting point with that. Here's what I want to go with that. It's actually, ironically, comes from a statement that Jesus made. Jesus said, "Greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friend." If you're an evolutionary atheist, sorry, my computer's shaking. If you're an evolutionary atheist, is that situation truly, ideologically, and practically altruistic? And what's funny is the answer is yes. Because as an atheist, you do not believe in an afterlife. So there is no conceivable benefit whatsoever from death. There is no conceivable benefit. So if you as an atheist give your life for another person, that is actually a truly altruistic situation. As a Christian, you would have the afterlife. So it wouldn't be. So it's actually funny. The only possible philosophy in which to make a truly altruistic decision is atheism, which I find to be very funny. So altruism exists because of that one statement, that one situation. So the conclusion is, therefore, survival of the fittest does not exist. Because remember, premise one, altruism and survival of the fittest are mutually exclusive. They can't exist together. Altruism exists. Therefore, the conclusion is survival of the fittest can't exist. Because if one exists, it's taking up the space of the other one. So that argument can't exist. So if survival of the fittest doesn't exist, the main crux of evolutionary atheism is false. Therefore, evolution is actually philosophically not possible based upon the question itself, which is obviously not being asked from a Christian perspective, because the question is meant to debunk Christianity. Now let's move to a second one. Let's see here. Evolution claims survival of the fittest, but the existence of the concept of altruism in human thought through psychology, which is by nature mentally exclusive from survival of the fittest, we know survival of the fittest does not exist for humans. Evolutionary atheism is therefore incoherent. So what I'm saying is this. Evolution claims survival of the fittest, but the existence of the concept of altruism in human thought by psychology, which is by nature mutually exclusive from survival of the fittest, we know that survival of the fittest doesn't exist. So what this means is this. If you're an evolutionary atheist, you believe that all humans got here by survival of the fittest. We all clawed our way up the ladder, so to speak, to use a lot of Richard Dawkins terminology, and came to where we are now. That's how we got here. Survival of the fittest. You die, and I'm stronger than you, and I helped to propagate the DNA to go to the next level so that they were better, and they were better, and we inched our way up to who we are now. But if that ideology is all that's ever existed, why would the concept of altruism ever even occur in human psychology? Why would we even think up such an idea if its natural, philosophical, mutually exclusive partner has always existed? If survival of the fittest is always what we've ever worked off of, that's the only ideology that's therefore then ever been present. Therefore, by ideological conclusion, altruism can never exist in that slot because we've always been survival of the fittest. So altruism can never get in there to take its slot because we've already established that by death of another, altruism is possible. So if it can't take up that slot, but it does exist, then we know that slot's never existed. Survival of the fittest has never existed, but evolutionary biology is false. Now let's quickly look at a second proof. Evolutionary atheism is incoherent. Any worldview that believes in altruism and survival of the fittest at the same time is incoherent. Evolutionary atheism believes in altruism and survival of the fittest at the same time. Those are the two premises. Conclusion. Evolutionary atheism is therefore incoherent. With the death of yourself in altruism of another friend, you want to save another friend, but you're an atheist and there's no afterlife, you're committing an altruistic act. But as an evolutionary atheist, you believe in survival of the fittest. Therefore, your own ideology is in self-conflict with itself. And that's, again, based upon, that's, of course, with the assumption that death of another person is an altruistic action, ideologically. So let's step back. What can we see? We see that Christianity is altruistic in reality, on a practical level, but it's not ideologically. So the argument that, therefore, it's incoherent doesn't apply. And then you can go further and say, on two different planes, altruism is possible for the atheist only, and therefore, with evolutionary atheism, survival of the fittest, put those two together, and you have a logically incoherent worldview, evolutionary atheism. And obviously, you would have to subscribe to evolution, because that's the only explanation for how we got to where we are now. So when you take where we are now, which has altruism, and you put it to how we've supposedly got here, survival of the fittest, they're in complete conflict with one another, and philosophically and ideologically cannot coexist because of the problem of dying for another person. So we can see that Christianity is coherent on a practical level for altruism, but not ideologically, and oddly enough, evolutionary atheism is the only one that can be on an ideological level, but that just shows its self-contradictory nature. So I enjoyed the question. I look forward to doing many other of these kind of YouTube responses, these kind of podcasts, that's what I meant to say, to great questions, and I really look forward to my comrades' response to this question. I know it'll be pretty interesting, especially I want to hear Roger and Scott. I know they're going to have some good thoughts on this. And I appreciate you guys listening, and we'll talk to you later, and look forward to your comments. Thank you. God bless you guys.